Mine is a study of the nature of SOT, occipital line fibers, and I did a study of 65 patients, and I'll tell you why I chose these 65, but we're able to do, I have 2 studies that I'm going to do today, and we're able to do them, and I think a big part of it is our recording system. I'll leave this up there if anybody wants to look at it, but it's just the way we record in SOT, and as is all the SOT indicators, and we can follow the indicators down from visit to visit to visit. And we have little highlight colors and little circles we do and little codes that we do, and we're able to really monitor what's going on from visit to visit to visit. The original goal of making this chart was really that we'd be able to analyze patients in a very objective manner, not depend on them to tell us how they're doing, but to be able to discover how they're doing through objective testing. Where do I point this? Right there? Okay, this is a study of the nature of occipital line fibers. We use 65 patients. Another reason for being able to get 65 patients is because I've been in practice for over 38 years. Occipital fiber technique is vast, to say the least. It locates and adjusts subluxations. It identifies specific viscerosomatic, somatic visceral organ reflexes. It incorporates specific soft tissue therapies already discussed here today. And it also allows, and this is one of the reasons I really wanted to develop in it with a paper, it allows for the management of dis-ease. And it provides for a philosophy of care. A philosophy of care that I think can be really embellished and really can be part of what chiropractic is and what makes chiropractic, SOT chiropractic, so special. And we're going to try to really talk about the rationale for using occipital fiber technique is to find regions of the body that have some interrelationship through direct musculoskeletal, indirect reflex to the occipital region, spine, and possibly to visceral referred pathways. Humans have 12 thoracic vertebrae, just so we clear that up. Okay, selection criteria for this study. The patient was adjusted at this office for more than 5 consecutive years. The patient received at least 10 adjustments per year through the last 5 years. And at each visit, their occipital fibers were examined and related vertebra was noted and recorded in the patient's charts. So we followed these patients. A lot of these patients were more than 5 years, but these were the minimum requirements to qualify for this study. The 65 patient study varied in age. The chart below lists the number of patients per decade of birth. The reason I put that in there is because I want to make the point that occipital fibers, in my opinion, are something you're born with and something you die with, okay? And that's what's really important. That's why the concept of managing occipital fibers and occipital fiber subluxation is so significant. We have patients in their 80s. We have a patient, I'm going to show you a quick case study of a patient that we started at 8 months old. And he had an occipital fiber. The 80-year-olds still have occipital fibers. Some of these people have been in the practice for 25, 30 years. And we still, every time they come in, still do the occipital fiber technique on them. Okay, this is a sample case study. My favorite little kids. A 6-year-old male was first seen in the office in February 9th, 2007, experiencing upper respiratory congestion, frequent ear infections, fevers, general difficulty breathing with frequent use of antibiotics. He presented with an occipital line 2 area 5 occipital fiber that a related vertebral subluxation T7 right transverse process. For those that are not familiar with occipital fibers, line 1 relates to sort of inferior spinous process adjustment. Line 2 posterior transverse adjustment, and line 3 is sort of a pedicle adjustment. And each one of the lines, line 1, 2, and 3, carries you from a sort of a dysfunctional state to a pathological state. And you want to keep them out of that all the way over to a functional state. Okay? And little Jack here, neither the occipital fiber, vertebra, or organ reflexes were as sensitive as time went on to palpation and were present as when presently presented initially. Throughout his care, he has experienced no ear infections and occasional but mild upper respiratory congestion. Since the early stages of his adjustment, he's not required antibiotic therapy. All these things, he's been successful, he's done well, but his occipital fibers are still there. But to a lesser degree in their significance. All 65 patients had an occipital fiber with a related vertebral subluxation presented on all visits. Point made. Some were no longer experiencing soft tissue palpation sensitivity. Of the 3 main findings you find in the network of occipital fibers technique, occipital fiber, related vertebra subluxation, and soft tissue, the soft tissue, in my opinion, is the first to really experience changes. And the sensitivity is, as you go along, will become diminished. The occipital fiber will stay there, the subluxation will stay there, soft tissue becomes less sensitive. Symptomatically, they improve. All felt improvement from their initial stated symptoms. While all 65 patients maintained clinical improvement, they still presented at each office visit with an occipital fiber and a related vertebra subluxation with much less tenderness to palpation and stimulation. All patients understood the meaning of occipital fiber technique and at different levels participated in their care. And this is important because this is a management model. You're managing them and they're managing themselves. You're a team with your patient. The occipital, this is some commentary by Dr. Desjarnais. The occipital fiber is purely defensive and the result of other happenings. That's a really significant statement. If you open up a book of Desjarnais on his seminar notes and you read the chapter on occipital fibers, the number one word that's stated throughout the chapter is defensive. It's defensive. I like to think of occipital fibers as being part of your immune system. It's part of your immune system. They have to be there. It is not causative, and as long as the fiber responds, the body's defense is normal. It's really, really fantastic statement by Desjarnais. This study noted that all 65 patients presented with occipital fibers and related vertebral subluxations at each visit. Desjarnais taught that chiropractors have the ability through occipital fiber identification to locate, adjust, and improve subluxations along with related soft tissue organ deficiency. The occipital line 2 fiber is diagnostic of altered physiology which may be pathological. And again, that's really the concept. A line 1 is in a state of dysfunction. A line 2 is becoming much more dysfunctional and sort of evolving into a pathological state. And the more they're in that pathological state, the more destructive the problem is. So you're trying, and with their participation, to bring them back into a functional state. Desjarnais noted that the understanding of occipital fibers can enable practitioners to identify aberrant viscerosomatic, somatic visceroreflex organ problems and manage, emphasis on manage their care. The occipital line 2 patient must have nutritional help as well as total help. So you're really limited to a degree. You can't do it without them. That's the best way to say it. You need them to be part of the process. Did I do this yet?
Yep. No.
Oh, this study appears to support DeJarnett's contention that subluxations determined through occipital fiber analysis are associated with cause and effect. Organ, spine, it's all part of a system. If you think of it as a loop, a feedback loop, where's the beginning, where's the end? There is none. It's all part of a system. He purported that subluxations cause pain and dysfunction and can lead to pathological states. He believed that subluxations can be responses to internal dysfunctional and pathological organs, and occipital fiber analysis is a process of identification. So subluxations can be diagnostic and adjustments. By using occipital fibers and related soft tissue techniques, DeJarnett believed you can improve organ function, reduce the effects of subluxation, and help direct the patient to proper supportive behaviors. Thank you. Pretty good. Mine is a study of the nature of SOT, occipital line fibers, and I did a study of 65 patients, and I'll tell you why I chose these 65, but we're able to do, I visit, and we have little highlight colors and little circles we do and little codes that we do, and we're able to really monitor what's going on from visit to visit to visit. The original goal of making this chart was really, I have 2 studies that I'm going to do today, and we're able to do them, and I think a big part of it is our recording system. I'll leave this up there if anybody wants to look at it, but it's just the way we record in SOT, and as is all the SOT indicators, and we can follow the indicators down from visit to visit to, where do I point this? Right there? Okay, this is a study of the nature of occipital line fibers. We use 65 patients. Another reason for being able to get 65 patients is because I've been in practice for over 38 years. That we'd be able to analyze patients in a very objective manner, not depend on them to tell us how they're doing, but to be able to discover how they're doing through objective testing.